Ani Manakanesh Kudekwe Dishnakas Kwempon Donjaba. Allison is my English name. I'm going to be talking about the missing and murdered Indigenous women. And I'd like to start off with a smudge first. We call it Kwenezagan because we're going to talk about a sensitive topic which may trigger some people. Naha. So to start off, I'm going to sing a song that has special words. It's called the Sacred Fire Song. And in our culture, we have the sacred fire, which has a lot of meaning to our people. And it's usually meant for looking within, which we all have to do when we grieve. So here's the song, Sacred Fire. Bring me visions of light. that is called the Sacred Fire Song, and that's from a woman named Deanne. She made that song. So when we talk about the missing and murdered Indigenous women, it's recommended that we have a fire, a sacred fire, or a candle lit in honor of that spirit of the fire, because we're looking within when we deal with our grief, looking at our loved ones who's passed on. We also do ceremony, and part of our ceremony includes the blessing of the water. As women, Anishinabe Quilt, we honor our women because water is what gives life, and that's part of our responsibility. So we pray for the water because that nurtures life. And we also have our strawberries here. And the teaching of the strawberries, that it's a heartberry. And in times when we have challenges or struggles, sometimes it's hard to look within our hearts here, especially when we have someone that's been murdered or killed, or someone that's missing and has never been found. So we use this medicine of the strawberry to help us to look within, to help us with our grief. And it may be hard at times where we need support people, an elder, going into sweat lodge, going to ceremonies to help us deal with our grief and to pray for our loved one that's missing or that we have lost. So the next topic I want to talk about is, I want to show my video here first while I talk. So it's a video honoring our murdered and missing women. So if you give me a second there, it'll turn on here on this TV. And in this video, I made this video quite a while ago, a couple of years ago, to honor different events that I've attended and participated in regarding the murdered and missing women. And because there's so much violence going on around the world, it's very heartbreaking to see how much violence is happening for our women and our girls. And now we see it happening with our men. Our men are also missing. And it's good to honor them because they're not forgotten. We cannot forget them. We have to honor them because it helps with the healing. It helps healing the individual with their loss. It also helps with healing for communities to get together in unity to pray. You know, there's strength and power in prayer that it needs to happen. And I just need to turn up the volume. Just a minute. This particular song was made by Jerry Caboni, honoring our missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. So in this video, there's different pictures which was given to me from Cywink. And Mrs. Cywink has been advocating for missing and murdered Indigenous women, and she gave me these pictures, and I felt I had to do something with them. So I made this video to honor them. These are not all the women missing. This is just a small bit of who are missing and murdered. Some of them have been murdered by a serial killer named Picton in BC, and he's never been charged for some of the deaths that he committed. Some of them are sexual abuse survivors as a child, And because they haven't gone through their healing, they carry that shame, low self-esteem, broken spirit. Someone had broken their spirit. So we need to strengthen our communities by education. So when we look at the past, historical impacts which are prevalent today, we see that on the media. Some of the media is residential school. Canada created residential school to kill the Indian. And some of the Anishinabe had terrible experiences where they were raped, sexually abused, physical abuse, mental abuse, and spiritual abuse. The boys or the children that went to school with their long hair, their hairs, their braids were cut off. So it created shame because they were told they were dirty. They were told that they were praying to the devil when they were living their culture, their own spiritual ways of life. And some of them had starvation. Some of them were sterilized so that they would not have children. And some of the girls that were sexually abused in residential school gave birth to children. And those babies were thrown into a fire alive. So things like that happen in our past. And there's so much prayers that are needed to help with the healing. I wanted to talk about genocide a little bit more. Genocide is the killing of a group of people so that they cannot sustain their lives, their communities. So with that is not being able to practice your traditional teachings, not being able to practice your original language, Anishinabe, practicing your medicines, your ceremonies, singing with the Dewegan, going to ceremony. We were taught to believe in Christianity and taught how to pray. And if you did not obey the priest or the nuns, you were punished. If we look at mainstream society, genocide occurred because you did not fit a certain part of belonging in that community. If you had disabilities, you were looked down upon. Today, we call that stereotyping. Stereotyping exists. If we look at what we've been taught in mainstream society, a lot of our Anishinaabe would be looked at as having disabilities because we don't think like mainstream society. We are people of doing. We create with our hands. We have holistic vision, whereas mainstream society has tunnel vision. We think about our environment. We think about the future. We think about our ancestors. All that in our circle of life gives us what we need to do today. Our traditional teachings and ceremonies carry us into future generations. And it gives us courage. Akadewan, being brave to share these stories, to talk about what the hurts we've had in our culture, and dealing with that grief. So we also have human trafficking. You know, human trafficking happened a long time ago when mainstream society came into our culture. When we lived how we did a long time ago. We lived with Mother Nature. We lived with the seasons. We lived with the environment. We knew how to live off the land. And the waters, the rivers, the lakes, that was our highway. You know, we traveled, we were giving people. If someone was hurt, we were there to help. We were there to share with food. And when we look at today, we have many struggles today because of our government. Our government made rules to control us, such as the Indian Act. With the Indian Act, they're stereotyping in there because it states who is human and not human. Not too long ago, we were given the right to vote for Canadian government. And now we have the awareness and the conflict of what is Indian status. We have this Indian Act which tells us who we are and how to qualify to be Indian status, the Indian Act. So with the humanizing of our Anishinabe people, another example is the police, when they investigate the death of Anishinabe, there's some evidence that they were involved by not doing adequate or proper investigation, or that when Anishinaabe are in jail, they pull them out of jail and they take them out of the city and they're left naked in the cold. So it's a very challenging society we live in. And the more we talk about these things, the more we have awareness in educating our communities, our loved ones, our families, our children, our grandchildren, that we can sustain. We can nurture our own fire, nurture our communities, our homes with all the love and knowledge gained from the past. So when we look at the future, future is dealing with our grief. And if we have a hard time, look up to those people who have gone and step forward with their grief. I'd like to mention a story or a book that's out there. It's called The Fire Within, and it's about a man who writes a story of how he experienced what he experienced as a child and how it relates to today and how it affected his daughter. So I wanted to talk about that book. It's called The Fire Within, and through his hardships he shares in his book he made. And as I read that book, you know, he talks about that fire. We need to have that fire lit when we talk about the missing and murdered Indigenous women. We need to honor those spirits when we talk about them. So when you have your own ceremony or gathering in your own community, remember to have your fire lit. Or if you're doing a workshop, to have your candle lit, such as this one here. And to have your water in your ceremony to honor them and feast them. Make a spirit plate to feast your loved ones, and honor with prayer, with your tobacco. So when we look at human trafficking, Indigenous people make 4% of the population worldwide. But when we look at human trafficking, it's 30 to 70% indigenous people that are out there that are being trafficked. You know, and it's becoming a world global industry. They're making millions. Sex slavery is a crime. Buying sex is a crime. And we need to educate out there what human trafficking is. You know, if our people do not heal from their hurts, such as sexual abuse, they carry that hurt. And when they become adults, that hurt is still there, and they may get confused. They may still carry triggers, and it'll affect their relationships. So it's very important to deal with past hurts, because we don't want to pass on that hurt. You know, we need to believe in ourselves and healing. There's places out there where you can go for healing. One that I'd like to mention is Dan Pine Healing Lodge. They have a program there called Ashes, the Beauty of Ashes program. And I'd recommend that for anyone. We also have shelters that people can go to. Here in Wakamekong, we've got the Nokmisnong shelter, which is for men and women, families that want to leave abusive relationships. And if you check out your local community pages, you will find places with shelters or healing lodges to attend. You will find indigenous friendship centers in the cities where you can go. We also have the Métis Nation that's out there. We've got traditional grandmothers out there that are ready to help. So with that, looking at our missing and murdered indigenous women, I just want to say miigwech ribasindoy, manage, zakadawin, miigwech.